Bike mechanics service a lot of bikes, and therefore they end up test riding a lot of bikes too. Nic Vieri is a mechanic with over 20 years of experience, and in today's episode, he's going to go over 10 of his most loved bikes.
Number 1, Masini Fusion. Number 2, Masini Premier. Number 3, Premier Plus. 4, the X-Fire. 5, the Fire. 6, the Techno. 7, the Racing Alloy.
You're only allowed to choose one Masini, Nick.
Well, Fusion was my favorite one I ever owned, but I think obviously that's a bike you'll never be able to get. It was made with Columbus Starship alloy. I think there's only a handful of frame builders who could actually manage to build a bike with it. And in the early 2000s, that's an alloy frame that weighed less than a kilo. It was unreal. I loved that bike more than anything. But I'd pick the X-Fire, the current stainless steel version. There's loads of bikes that use Columbus XCR tubing, but they make a custom tube shape just for Masini. And yeah, lovely bikes. Number 2, it's controversial and I'm getting a lot of hate for this, but Canondale Cade R600. Same model as what I think Cipollini rode back in the Seiko days. It wasn't because he was riding, it's just the shape of that bike. I've seen some people building them up recently. Dark green version, there's a few different colors with silver group sets and silver finishing kit, and it's an incredibly beautiful bike. To Canondale's defense, back in the day, they did really innovative stuff that wasn't causing us too much hassle. Removable dropouts, they changed the shape of the seat stays to make bikes more compliant, changed the shape of tubing to make them stiffer but also more comfortable. They did some really good stuff back in the day. Hopefully they can do some more good stuff going forward, but yeah, don't do anything strange. JGM Atelier. It's a gravel bike I bought myself 4 years ago after conning my business partner Rob to buy one first so I could try it out to see what it's like, but it was love at first ride. It's a titanium frame set. The company that owns them the owner used to have Van Nicholas, which was a very famous brand. He sold that, moved to Mallorca to live the easy life, but he missed bikes. So came back and they released a very niche company called JGM, and they do a few road bikes, a mountain bike frame set, and this gravel frame set. It's the most sold bike I think we've had in the shop. All my friends ride them. I've actually got another customer who's bought one and then ended up buying a £14,000 carbon gravel bike to be his like Sunday best bike. And he's come back last week saying he really doesn't like it. He thinks the JGM rides better. So the other beauty of titanium is that if you ride with me, you're gonna crash. I mean, like every single ride is guaranteed. It just happens. Francis laughed. He came over to the Northeast. First ride, he crashed, almost went to hospital. Second ride, I crashed into a river. But the best thing about this bike is you crash, you just get a bit of like a Brillo pad and you can buff out the scratches. That's the beauty of titanium. It's just, yeah, it makes life a lot easier. Longevity. I mean, I'm quite surprised that bike hasn't snapped in half by now. The Riley Reflex. So I've loved this Atelier for years, but the Reflex is that and more. I've been riding for a few weeks now and it's just such a lovely bike. It looks beautiful. It's got the option of integrated or non-integrated cables. So whichever way you want to go, that works. But the big thing for me is tire clearance. So this one can do 650 up to 2.4 inch, but can also do 700 or 29er wheels up to 2.1 inch. So I can do essentially everything I want to do with it. It's got an upgraded T47 bottom bracket, which is a threaded BB instead of just press fit. They also offer things like custom anodization and things like that. So you can, a lot of people were complaining for a while just titanium's boring because everybody's got the same looking bike, where now you can actually add loads of color. It's really easily changed eventually as well if you wanted to. So it's, yeah. I love the look of it. If you've got loads of money lying around, you can buy the matching road bike as well, the Fusion. So it kind of works. My ideal scenario is to have the two bikes that look almost exactly the same, but one's gravel and one's road. The full collection. What more would you need? Seta Plus. This is probably the only plastic bike. No, actually, there's another plastic bike that I like that I'm going to put on here. Sato invited me to Italy a few years ago to go do a Gran Fondo. And for this one, I was very against disc brakes and tubeless tires. Very old school, traditional, I liked classic bikes. And they lent me a Lampo with disc brakes on it. But on the day before the Sporty, we were riding around, the Gran Fondo, we were riding around and I sliced one of the tubs and didn't have spare tires for me. So they said to me, the only way I'm riding the next day is if I take their Seta Plus, which I was just about to release, but the downside is it had 32mm tires on. And I was like, no. Like, Obviously, I don't want to be a drama queen, but like I just didn't want to ride it. But obviously it was that or nothing. There was no other bike in my size that was going to work. No wheels, no tires, no options. So I rode the bike and I fell in love instantly. I don't think I will ever go below 30mm tire again. It was just so much more comfortable. While everybody was swerving tiny holes, I just could go over everything. The braking on the descents, I could stop much later than anybody else. So that overtaking on the descents, it was just, I instantly fell in love with that bike. Not cheap. So obviously aspirational, I haven't been able to afford one yet, but yeah, that is one of my dream carbon bikes. Cinelli Experience. This is a bike we were selling up until the beginning of the pandemic, but they've discontinued it. But for £800, you can get this frame set with a Potenza group set, which is Campag's almost Altegra, between Altegra and 105 equivalent. It was room brake, but it was just a lovely looking bike. We had a few people customize theirs in terms of paint schemes. But if you couldn't win a race on one of them, you weren't going to win a race in any other bike. It's lovely. The people that own Cinelli also own Columbus. Antonio Colombo owns both companies. So they use Columbus tubing on all their bikes. Back in the day when alloy was a big thing for bikes, Columbus airplane aluminium was very highly regarded. So it's a really, really good aluminium frame set. They should bring that back. That is a nice bike. The Kinesis Tripster. That was my first gravel bike that I bought. It's alloy frame set. I think that cost about £750 for a frame. So not cheap, but not expensive. But Kinesis got mega history in cyclocross and innovation. Very versatile, loads of bottle mounts, nice green color or a really wild orange color. I think they've just released a new version that can take even bigger tires now. So I'm quite excited to see what that's like. Next one is my other plastic / carbon bike, Time ADHX. If you don't know about them, do some research, go on YouTube, watch some videos on how the frames are made. It's unreal. I think they're one of the rare companies that make their frames completely different to anybody else. The carbon's not just bought in sheets from other factories. It's literally woven on a loom in their factory, depending on what frame it is and how they're making it. And the molds are made out of wax, and it's a real piece of art the way they make it. The seamstresses essentially stitch the bikes together, and it's just lovely. There's also other videos on YouTube where people go on about how round the bottom bracket is and how well it's made, and that's all good and well, but that's not what I would be focusing on these bikes. It's more on how the carbon is made. I feel that the ADH, the tire clearance, is a bit too small for my liking, but the ADHX was misrepresented as a gravel bike. It's not a gravel bike, it's a road bike. Look at the geometry, it's just a good bike. I really, really, really like them. My next one is aspirational as well. It's Offici Batien. Giovanni Batien won, I think it's 1981, he won the Vuelta and the Giro in the same year, which was quite a feat back then. But he started making bikes, and do yourself a favor, Google these bikes, they look unreal. So they do a thing called Chromo Velato. It's where they chrome a bike and then paint over it. They've released a new bike and it's called the Portofino Gravel, and it is just unreal. For their custom ones, every year they decide how many they're releasing. So this year it's 70 bikes. So you buy one and then you get a number between 1 and 70, and that's what you're getting, and it's not to be repeated. The only downside is I think if I bought one of them, there's no way I would ride that bike outside. I would just hang it on my wall and look at it all day long. My last one I had to think quite long about, because obviously there's so many options, but I decided to pick the Brother Mete, especially in the new colorway Tequila Sunrise. In terms of gravel, it's not the most expensive one. It's a steel frame set. I think it retails for about £999 for the frame set. But it's just really well made. It's got all the mounts you could think of. It's external cable routing, carbon fork, BSA bottom bracket. It's a bike that I'm trying to build up myself soon, where I'm going to try and build a bike that doesn't need any servicing. So I'm going to go full XD15 on it. 700 by 50mm tire clearance for gravel, but the geometry is in such a way that it'll make for a very good road endurance bike as well. So you can put normal 32mm tires on and just use it as your bike for everyday riding. It's just very versatile. It's an English company, and I really like them. If I didn't have the bike shop and I had to buy a bike myself to use as one for everything, that's probably what I would go for on a budget.
Those are Nic's 10 most loved bikes. Let us know in the comment section what your favourite bike is, and subscribe for more videos like this.